Yes.
We're on the Talk a Life Talk Show with Elma.
Yes.
I just love it. I love it. I love it. Because we are so real on this show. You know, we can't sleep. We can't do anything but be excited. But anyway, welcome to the Talk a Life Talk Show with Elma tonight. With my co-host over here to the right. What is her name? The one and only Kimberly. Yes. And Lord, I hate to introduce this one. But anyway, her name is Linda. All right. And then we have our guest co-host, the one and only Penny. Yes. Yes. And then we have Veronica Shanklin, right?
Yes.
Veronica Shanklin is on the show tonight. She is on a mission to help caregivers live balanced and fulfilled lives while also taking on the stressful and demanding job of caregiving. And we're going to find out a little bit about her caregiving. One thing that I was really impressed with her, she moved back from Chicago. I almost said California, thinking about my husband. Still can't get over the 40,000.
I know, right?
But anyway, she moved from Chicago, right? And you have been in Chicago how long?
10 years.
10 years to come back and take care of her mother and your grandmother. And we're going to let her share that story. She's very educated and she's been on different, you see I have all these papers for her and everything, but it was, she moved back from Chicago. After 10 years of living and working as a marketing director in Chicago, she left her career, relocated back to her hometown of the Big D, Dallas, Texas. A shout out to Dallas, to become a primary caregiver. And this is so touching for her mother and her grandmother, because a lot of people would not do that.
Amen.
A lot of people don't even like their families. Right? They can't stand their families. But the move to come back and take care of her mother and grandmother, it's a touching, it's just awesome that somebody would do that. She also, she's going to be talking about their diseases that they come up against, you know, and you're going to mention that because I always mess up that word. So I'm going to let y'all hear her story in a minute. She also has, she founded a 501c3 nonprofit organization called Dementia Care Warriors, right? In 2019, she's also been on the, wait a minute, I saw it over here. She's been in so much, gosh. Okay, her caregiver story has been featured in the not Cheerios, but the O magazine.
Magazine.
Also the Ebony magazine. Southwest North magazine. And she's also been featured in the Dallas Morning News on, is that iHeartRadio? And then I actually saw the taping of the WFAA Dallas. She's been just busy.
She's been on the Talk of Life.
She's on the Talk of Life Talk Show with Elma. So I'm very honored to be sitting with somebody that's been in all these magazines, you know, gosh. And also, she is just so busy. Alzheimer's, Association Advocacy Forum, and you went to the Washington, D.C.?
I did.
Whoa. So, you know, I'm going to stop because all this here is a lot.
That's wonderful.
But I like to hear from her. So, you know, we're going to open up for her to talk about this touching disease that a lot of people, and you talked about, what was that other one you talked about? Come on, help me out.
Alzheimer?
That one, dementia, and
Parkinson's?
hospice. It was hospice.
Hospice.
That I didn't know. Okay, so we're going to open it up to our special guest, Veronica, and she's going to talk about how she was able to leave Chicago, move here, and the signs and everything that some people may not know, and some people may think they have this disease and you might not have it. So we're going to turn it over to her. But before we get there, I have the sauce, and we're going to introduce these sauces to her too. And can you share one of your sauces to our co-hosts here, the guests? Which one you want to share with her?
I'm the devil's advocate.
Okay, so she likes that.
Slap your mom. Or do you want to be the devil's advocate today?
Or do you want to slap your mom?
Take this.
Okay, so mine, what we're doing, we have sauces out here. Mine is the mustard, yellow mustard, because I like to be cautious on some of the things that I be wanting to squirt. to certain people over here. So,
Veronica,
if Veronica get to acting up, we gonna squirt her with my sauce. And then Nunda has
ketchup.
I'm
trying to catch up.
She always stays behind. That's when we have to be cautious.
Right.
Okay, and what is yours?
And mine is that Cajun hot, spicy slap your mama. It's so good.
You just want to slap your mama. Don't y'all do that. Okay, and this one over here.
Somehow I became the devil's advocate, red
Cause she
devil.
is the advocate.
I am.
And she's also hot. Okay? So before we get started, I want y'all to meet our model. We have a model, and her name is Kimberly, the devil advocate. So stand up, Kimberly, and show your devil advocate outfit tonight. See? Look at it. See, she has the hood on because she always trying to disguise herself. She have on the back love. I don't know if she really love, but she has it on the back. And look at those beautiful boots she have on. She always want to kick folks. And you see that little tail in the back? That's that devil. The little tail on the back is her devil. So give it up for Kimberly. She's our Talk of Life model. So y'all stay tuned. Next week she have on a different outfit. Okay, so now we're going to get off into Veronica sauce. And at the end of the show, I want you all to put which sauce do you all think that she accomplished tonight. And if it's not mine, I'm going to squirt her. Okay, Veronica, tell us a little bit about yourself and what happened.
Okay, so like you said, I was living in Chicago for 10 years, working in marketing. I was marketing director at a community college, and I was coming back and forth home to Dallas and realizing that I might need to come back home permanently. And the way I came to that realization was that my mom was taking care of my grandmother, who had Alzheimer's, but my mom was struggling with taking care of my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
So coming back and forth, at some point, I realized that I probably needed to move back and help out. And one of the things that happened was my grandmother ended up having an episode. She had a seizure. She got kind of aggressive with my mom. And so my mom calls me and she's in an ambulance. She's in her car following an ambulance to the hospital. And so at that point, I ended up maybe a couple days later coming home and my grandmother was in the hospital. And basically my mom just couldn't handle the situation. And so I ended up talking to a social worker. She ended up just telling me about facilities, like short-term stay facilities. And I really just got thrown into the world of caregiving, like at that moment. And so a couple months later after that, I ended up moving home permanently.
So you went from a big change from marketing to being a caregiver. Are you still working now or are you just taking care of your
So I do
mom?
Freelance marketing now. And so I have a business partner. And so we do website graphic design and things like that, which is what I was doing on a larger scale in Chicago. But now just
So how old
do it
were
for
you
myself.
then, if you don't mind us asking?
I think I was 34, 33, early 30s.
Early 30s.
When
That's
you
a
moved
lot.
out.
When I moved back, yeah.
That's a lot to take on at that age.
So what was some of the signs? How did you get to the point that they had the disease? What disease did they actually have?
So they both ended up having Alzheimer's. They both had Alzheimer's diagnosis.
Simultaneously.
And actually, when I first moved home, my mother didn't have a diagnosis.
Oh, okay.
It was just my mother taking care of my grandmother. My grandmother had moved into the house with my mom.
Okay.
And then maybe about a year later or a little less is when my mom got her diagnosis.
Oh. Okay.
So it wasn't until I moved home and realized that my mom was also having issues. She was the manager of the credit union at our church, which takes a lot of organization and, leadership skills. And she was kind of struggling with that. She was struggling with keeping track of the bills at home. And it's one thing, I might forget to pay my cell phone bill or you might forget to pay, but when it starts to really affect daily living and you know what I mean? You're really getting behind on things and you might want to start taking a look and trying to figure out what is causing that. So one thing that I'm really a big advocate of is early diagnosis.
Okay, good.
And so again, when it starts to affect daily living, so you lose your keys. Okay, that's one thing. But when you lose your keys 3 days in a week and are late to work every day because you lost your keys, there might be something wrong.
So how did you convince your mom to go?
Fortunately, I'm very blessed to have two care recipients who were pretty cooperative.
Okay.
So she she really didn't give me much
You
pushback.
just told her you saw some things and you thought maybe she
Right.
needed to.
And I knew, and she actually had not been taking care of her health anyway, or hadn't been to a doctor recently. So we needed to just go get a checkup and all those types of things anyway. So getting that initial checkup kind of led to then a neurologist, and then kind of led us down that road. I mean, I do know of a lot of people who struggle with even getting someone to go to the doctor.
Yes.
Right.
And I mean, everyone is different, of course. So you deal with your person how you know you. And sometimes you might have to do a little fibbing, to get them to come along, or tell them you're going for something else. Definitely have conversations with the doctor to let them know what's going on. If you can pull them to the side so that they can get a clear understanding. But I definitely recommend, because the other thing about it is, as far as this early diagnosis, is it could be something else. It might not even be Alzheimer's
that's
or dementia.
a good point.
So what could it be?
It could be hormones and menopause. It could be some medication, that you're on. It could be a friend of mine.
The menopause, high salt.
That's true.
It could be a friend of mine. Her mom was having a lot of, I guess, mental, for lack of a better word, issues. And it turned out she had a tumor that was really affecting her behavior. And it wasn't Alzheimer's or dementia, but it kind of presented the same way. And so she came to me to ask me, and she ended up going to the doctor and finding out that's what it was. So it's really important to go to a doctor and try to see what's going on.
Okay, so when you say doctor, are you talking about a neurosurgeon or?
Okay, so
which one would be best to go to?
Start with your primary care physician.
Primary care.
Yeah, start with your primary care physician. There are geriatric primary care physicians who really specialize in older adults, so they're more familiar, with these things. And don't be afraid to go to a different doctor. Like some people, they've had the same doctor for 50 years, and that doctor, just
Right.
Go along with the program.
Yeah. So So never be afraid to switch docters.
Did you have to do that with your mom? Did you have to go to several different doctors, or?
So we started off, PCP referred us to a neurologist, and it was like they do an in-office mini memory exam. So they ask you questions like, write the hands on this clock, or I'm going to tell you a story, and then at the end of the story, they tell you to tell it back to them. Or there's a whole list that they go down. So he went through that, just did very little, and said that it was probably Alzheimer's. I'm going to prescribe her this medicine and come back in 6 months. And that was it.
Oh my God.
And I was like, when I left out of there, I was like, I should have been a neurologist, because if that's all you have to do, then, clearly I know there's more to it. But with him, it was like, and there was really no bedside matter. There was no, you know what I mean? He just didn't really seem concerned. So
just say this and gave you that, you walked out.
And come back and then give me any direction as far as organizations I could contact for help.
No information.
Or what to expect or, anything like that. So got rid of him. Ended up going to someone else, and long story short, went through a couple different doctors and ended up at the one we're at now, who's great, and who I was referred to by someone that I met in a support group. And she loved her doctor. And it's a African American lady, and who reminds me of Michelle Obama, and she's just great. So we finally, ended up somewhere that I feel is a good fit for us. But yeah, it's perfectly fine to find a different doctor.
So how's your mom now?
So her biggest issue right now is short-term memory loss. She's still independent to the point of she can get up and get dressed and, brush her teeth and stuff. But just short-term memory is just gone like that. And what people don't realize is short-term memory affects everything. It affects even down to, I don't realize that I just ate. You know what I mean? Everything, if you think about it. So, yeah.
How old is your mom?
Good question. My mom is 74, 75, mid-70s. And my grandmother passed away in September 2017. But she was mid-80s when she passed away. So I had her for like 4 or 5 years before she passed.
How do you tell the difference from dementia and Alzheimer? How can you tell the difference?
So that's a really good question. And the way I explain it is, dementia is really an umbrella term. and Alzheimer's is a type of dementia.
Okay.
So there are a number of types of dementia. So Parkinson's is also a type of dementia.
Oh, okay.
Alzheimer's, there's Lewy body dementia, there's vascular dementia, and they really affect different parts of the brain. So like vascular dementia is really associated a lot with strokes. And stroke victims a lot of times end up with vascular dementia, but depending on what part of the brain it affects, that's how it presents. So some dementias have more behavioral issues, like
behavior, like what?
Like aggression and violence and that sort of thing, or even no filter as far as profanity or whatever comes out just comes out because they no longer have that sense of what's right or what's wrong.
So does diabetes come? I mean, could that affect it or cause dementia too? Or
I don't know that it causes it. I think something that's good to note, and they talk about just being healthy overall.
We know about healthy,
right? Like heart health, blood pressure, heart disease, and all those sorts of things. Because the thing about my mom and my grandmother is they were fairly healthy otherwise. So we weren't running back and forth to the doctor for all these other ailments and, issues. The main thing that we're dealing with is Alzheimer's because they were fairly healthy otherwise. So you think about somebody with Alzheimer's who needs to take insulin. They're not going to remember to take insulin. Right. You know what I mean? Or remember to take their meds for, the diabetes, whatever.
Did she have home people, or you was the only one taking care of her?
So with my grandmother, she was actually on hospice, which brings up hospice for 2 years. She was on hospice.
I didn't know you could stay on hospice that long though.
It really just depends on your condition and it depends on the hospice company. They actually do a evaluation, like they come in and evaluate. I think it's every 6 to 8 weeks or something like that, to make sure that you're still declining. And if you're starting to get better, then they'll remove you from service. But they do an evaluation to make sure that you're still in decline. But something that I wanted to say about hospice is not to be afraid of hospice.
See, that's the thing. And hospice is something, every time I heard the word hospice, it was like they get ready to die.
Right.
3 months.
Yeah, you think you put them in hospice and they're dying. You're just letting them die. They're not going to take care of you. They're not going to feed you. They're just going to let you die.
Right.
So is that what hospice is about?
It's really not. And again, it depends on the person because we don't know when this person is going to pass.
That's right.
So
that's the thing.
My father was actually on hospice, but he had cancer and he was on hospice maybe for like 2 months and then he passed away. But that was just the nature of his illness. With my grandmother, there are people on hospice who get up and drive around and go, you know what I mean? Like,
really?
Yeah, it just depends on, because you could have terminal cancer and still be fully able to walk around and do whatever you need to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, nobody knows the day or the hour when somebody is going to pass.
Let me ask you this. So is it true though too that hospice is good more so for the family?
Absolutely.
To help them to cope with their loved one's disease?
Absolutely.
Help them.
Yeah, I never would have survived those 2 years without hospice. So I had a CNA who would come 3 times a week to give her a bath. I had 24-hour on the phone nursing. If I had any questions or anything, they covered all her meds. She had a massage therapist. She had a music therapist. I had a chaplain. I had a social worker. And then also on hospice, with most hospice companies, you get 5 days of respite care. So they can go to a facility for 5 days, like a nursing home, or even the hospice company we have, they have an inpatient hospice wing at a hospital now. So if the family needs a break, then they can go and stay there.
That is, I didn't know that.
And they can stay there inpatient while you get a 5-day break. So like with me, it was my mom and I basically taking care of my grandmother, and my mom to the extent that she could. But if we needed to travel or do anything, then we could have her
there.
Oh, and they would take care of her and everything. And then when she get back, they move her back home or wow. See, I was thinking that hospice was just they're gonna die because see when my sister-in-law went through that, they kept trying to. They were just begging to put her on hospice, and everything I could think of was They're not going to feed her. They're not going to take care of her. I guess it was the way they was talking.
Right.
If they didn't say anything like hospice would do. It's
Right.
It was like you have to put
Well,
her
now
on
it's
hospice.
different companies,
Yeah.
and some companies are better than others.
Right.
But
So
this
you
was
kinda
this
have to
was
do
a
your
hospital, and the way they came at me was like, she's gonna die anyway. So why y'all just keep putting her through this pain? And I kept saying, no, I don't want her in hospice because she's going. It's to me it was like that. They never tried to convince me,
Right.
like you're saying,
Right.
that they could put her into, even though she was in the hospital setting.
Right.
I think if they had said something like what you were saying, is
Right.
that we're not going to just let her die. We're going to pamper her, make her comfortable.
Right.
It wasn't the
It's
feeling
comfort
that
care is what
Yeah.
they call it.
It's
It's
what it
comfort care.
should be.
Yeah, but I never did pick up that. So we just decided no. We wanted to
Have to
make
do
sure that she stayed in there. But they did move her to a rehab,
Mm-hmm.
and they was able to move her legs and all that. But she was in so much pain from that
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't.
Sound like they wanted to medicate her.
That's what they did. They
Mhm.
kept medicating her, and she couldn't. She would just be all out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then she would, know us when we would come in, but she would fall right back to sleep.
Did she pass at home or at the hospital?
No, she passed at the hospital.
Okay. Yeah. And that was the thing, like with my dad, he didn't want to pass in the hospital.
Mhm.
He was like, I want to be
At
at home.
home.
Yeah, and he was at home, and everyone who needed to come see him came to see him, and he was comfortable, and so.
And I think that, and that was another thing. You couldn't go but one person a day.
Mm-hmm.
So that was irritating us because we had to share the time with the other people that wanted to go see her.
Mm-hmm.
But they never mentioned that she could have came home and
Mm-hmm.
that everybody could have been around her.
Mm-hmm.
They was just like, oh, you just need to take her off. And that's the reason why I didn't know about hospice like that.
Yeah, it was definitely a lifesaver for me, and I would highly recommend. And the other thing is, like with my grandmother, she was evaluated for hospice twice
Okay.
and denied, and it wasn't so that was just over time.
Okay.
So if you feel like maybe this might be time for that, you can get a hospice evaluation, and they might say no, they're not ready.
Okay.
And then maybe try again, later on. So
does it have to be a certain type of disease, or can hospice be for any kind of disease?
there are certain diseases that are covered by hospice.
by your insurance?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
So with my grandmother, Medicare paid for everything
Okay.
on her with the hospice, medication, everything, nursing, everything was covered by Medicare.
Wow.
And what I find is a lot of people who I refer to hospice, they're like, oh, I wish I would have had this a month ago.
See, that's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
See,
Yeah, they don't realize how much help they could get. Hospital bed, wheelchair,
Yes.
grab bars in the shower, supplies, bed pads, gloves,
See,
diapers.
when you don't know that.
Right,
See, that's
insurance.
good information right
Yeah,
there that
they-
you can get.
They cover a lot.
So what about this here? You're a nonprofit.
So I started my nonprofit last year. It started off as a blog. I used to have a blog called Be Myself and I would share tools, tips, and resources for caregivers.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that last year morphed into Dementia Care Warriors, which is now a 501c3 nonprofit. And we do education workshops, conferences. I have a support group that meets twice a month. And just education and resources for caregivers.
So you
is
do
really,
all of this?
I do all of this
And you have your support group how many times a month?
twice a month.
Twice a month? So you over the support group too?
I am, and actually the support group started off as a happy hour, and so we used to meet.
Wait, what you mean happy hour? What kind of happy hour? They
a
all
happy hour where we was happy.
what?
We were happy
Y'all
to be
had
together.
drinks?
We did have drinks. We used to meet at Gloria's Mexican
Oh, see,
restaurant.
that's what I'm talking about. Okay.
Gloria.
Y'all go there and get drunk and y'all happy, or do y'all do the stuff first?
wasn't
She said, I'm getting drunk.
What is
Come
that?
on over here, Linda. Why you over there? Bring your ice on over here and get your ketchup. See, now you got to catch up.
See, now you gotta catch
Okay,
up.
now she got to catch up.
Right.
I'm a happy hour now, so. Okay, so it started off as a happy hour.
Right. It started off as a happy hour, and we would meet once a month at Gloria's and get together. And really, you're leaning on each other.
Okay.
You're venting. We're learning from each other. You might be going through a situation that I'm going through, and you figured out how
That's
to deal with
good.
it, so you
That's
share.
good. That's good.
But then COVID happened, so
Oh,
then
yeah.
we couldn't go
Yeah,
to Gloria's
so you didn't
anymore.
go.
Yeah. So y'all can't get happy anymore.
So I took it online.
You have happy hour online?
Yeah.
How you do that? Zooming?
Yes. Exactly. Everybody. Exactly.
So everybody have to have their drink?
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, you don't have
some half
to.
hours on Zoom, y'all. Okay, so now you do it.
So then
neat.
so actually starting in March, we were actually meeting every Friday night. I cut it back to 2 times a month now, but we were meeting every Friday night because
on Zoom.
On Zoom.
But now before Zoom, you would be once a month in person.
Mm-hmm.
See, they done got really happy now. See, now they really happy. Every Friday night y'all Zooming.
And and we kind of just have a little community of.
That's neat.
And the thing is, like, I've actually had 2 of the ladies in my support group. Their mothers have passed since we started meeting in March.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They didn't pass because of COVID, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
So everybody in your support group, they either had somebody pass or they're taking care of somebody. So that's really a good way of escape because they can actually get with somebody and they can cry together. You all can talk together
and understand what each other's going through.
Yeah.
And I'm really a big advocate of support groups in general. The Alzheimer's Association offers a lot of support groups. If you just go to their website, you can find support groups on there. But a lot of the things I've learned, over time came from people that I met in support groups. So, for example, a neuropsychologist. So one lady was telling me how she took her husband to a neuropsychologist, which I had never heard of.
Right.
And basically what the neuropsychologist did was an all-day battery of testing. So they test everything from like reflexes to executive function as far as decision making, to vision, peripheral vision, and kind of just gave us like a bench of where my mother was at that point, so that when we do this test again in 2 or 3 years, we can see how she's progressed. And also at that point, that neuropsychologist said my mom could still drive because her reflexes were still good, her vision was still good, her memory wasn't to the point that as it is right now. So he was like, as long as she's going, to familiar places, like to church or to the grocery store or, things like that, she can still, track to get there.
That's good.
So, but I wouldn't have known that, I would have just been like, nope, cut it out. We're not, or even if she was still driving, I would have been like, right.
Yeah.
So is this location in Dallas or is it different areas?
So a neuropsychologist is just a doctor that you'll get referred to.
Okay, but do you trust this doctor? Or
Absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, that's all over the country. You can find them.
And insurance covered?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. So how are you doing now that do you have a life?
Barely.
So how are you coping with this, seeing your mom?
So I will say COVID does not help the situation because at least I could get out and go hang, and also when you're living with an elderly person, you're not trying to bring COVID, back to the house.
That's right.
Like if I wasn't taking care of her, I probably would be a little more free and a little more, hanging out. But I don't feel comfortable really
leaving her.
Leaving her.
Do you have a babysitter? elder sitter, whatever we want to call it, sitter.
The elderly sitter.
Come in, the elder sitter.
So I have my aunt has actually been helping me recently.
Good.
Since the summer, but before that I didn't have anyone. But also before COVID, we had through another resource through an agency something called a senior companion.
Okay.
And this was a lady who would come 3 days a week for like 3 or 4 hours a day. Wow. And she would take her out and they would go,
nice.
To walk around the mall or go to the park or go get lunch or something like that. But that was pre-COVID. Once COVID came, that was
gone.
So you don't get out that much now. Can you still drive her around in the car and just get her out like that?
Yeah, she can.
Does that
still
help?
do that. I just not that motivated to do that, honestly.
Okay.
But do you feel like depression and like things are closing in on you?
That's definitely a part of caregiving.
Yes.
Is there's typically
you
some
holler
level
sometime and scream.
Absolutely.
So what do you do?
But do
level.
you scream and holler? Because sometimes that helps.
No.
Oh,
come on,
to that
Veronica,
point.
tell us. You want to scream right now? Just scream, girl. Just let it out.
I haven't gotten to that point, but there are times when I'm like, I just need to get out the house, and I will call my aunt and be like, I need you to come so I can get out, because we stay in the house, for days at a time. Like,
Right.
So who's watching her tonight?
My aunt is there now.
Oh, she's there tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aunt, for doing
you.
it so we can hear about
Yes.
that. Okay. So let me ask you this. Now I'm gonna get off into the sauce.
Uh-oh.
What about your relationship? Do you have a relationship?
I currently do not have a relationship. I have
You don't
dated. I have dated over these last 7 years,
Mhm.
at some point, but I'm not dating right now.
Because you don't really have the strength or what, or
I mean,
the time.
Well,
Or
I don't go anywhere
you
to
don't
meet
go
anybody.
on blackpeople.com. Kim tell you about black people. That's our devil advocate over there. And so
I have not been on Black People or BlackPeopleMeet.com.
But we had a couple that was on the show. A young man met his
Why?
wife on blackpeople.com.
Oh.
It's in the back of my mind, I consider
How
it.
far back?
It's pretty far back right now. I'm kind of a little more traditional.
Penny over here divorced her high school, and what happened with it? Penny? You married him back.
Married him again.
Married
Oh, wow.
him again.
Wow.
So it works.
So,
I see. Yeah.
Since you out here giving your exes half, you can pick
Yeah,
one
that's
of them.
right. You give your exes
Yeah.
40,000.
One of them.
And
You
you-
get it all. Half get it all.
They'll probably like that song.
They want
That's
to get back together.
That's true. So yeah, no. Then add COVID. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I mean, not going anywhere to meet anybody. Like
Yeah.
it's just it's rough out here in the streets.
It is. It's rough, especially dating. We'll have to have you back when we do the new. No, what is it? The dating game.
The day.
We'll have to have you
You
back for the
know,
dating game. Yes.
I have to give you your props.
That's
because
right.
That takes a lot. You're
Yes,
a
it
young
does.
woman, number one. You
Mhm.
had
Yes.
it. You had it going on in Chicago
Mm-hmm.
because that's a
Mhm.
huge industrial area
Mm-hmm.
plus marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and you chose to take care of your
That's
mom, and
awesome.
that
Yeah.
takes a lot because
Mom and grandma.
you
Yes.
yeah
It's a
And
major
plus
undertaking.
you're not taking care of yourself
Mm-hmm.
in a sense because you're putting it all on your mom.
Mhm.
You're taking care of her needs,
Mm-hmm.
whereas your needs are being slighted.
Mm-hmm.
But that's love, ain't
But
it?
that's
That's-
love.
That's love.
That's caregiving.
That's
That's love
Right,
on that
right,
part with
right.
the mom.
Yeah,
that is
That's
love.
caregiving.
And I give you your
And
props.
it's
you.
hard. It's hard
That's good
because
that you
Thank
have
you.
your aunt that can
Yes.
step in.
that's a
Mhm.
good
Because you
thing.
definitely need some
Time.
self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Me time,
Some
meditation.
me
Yes.
time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
Some loving
I
on
think-
yourself.
At some point, I'm probably going to have to actually hire paid help.
Yeah.
And actually
Exactly.
but it's not necessarily cheap. Like
No,
sitters
it's
aren't
not.
cheap.
No, it's not.
And the thing, so like 1 year, I actually won 48 hours of respite care from an organization. Like I won it. And come to find out, the people who came and were there 48 hours, they was getting paid $25 an hour.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
Yeah. So imagine $25 an hour times.
that's a lot
yeah.
of money.
Yeah, that's a lot
Yeah.
of money.
So
But then, you don't think they can find some help for you on that?
Are there grants?
not that I know of,
Uh-huh.
but that's if you go through an agency.
Uh-huh.
If you can find a person in the community or a family friend or you know what I mean, someone that
Somebody
you
that
trust
could
like
do
that, they likely would not, because $25 an hour
Yeah.
is a cut to the agency and a cut to that person.
That's right.
Right.
That's
So if you
right.
can find somebody in the community or your family or someone that you
Right.
can pay to do it, you can usually get somebody for like $14, $15 an hour or something
Yeah,
like
but
that.
that's
So
still
that's
Yeah.
so high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get that $40,000 back. You get your.
Yeah, that's why you keep the 80,000,
You can have
girl.
a lot of me
You,
time.
that's right.
You
You
can
know,
fly
so-
around the world. Go
This
get
is
that money
true.
back.
This
Don't
is
get
true.
no-
Let me get
my
That's
40.
what
Get my other
I
40.
know you
That's
just
right.
Other 40.
But that's good. I know our time is almost up. That time goes by fast
Wow.
when you're talking about it and stuff. But I know you was featured on channel. I think it was Channel 8.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel when they was on there? Because it was a good. Y'all can go back and look at it. It was on. I think I saw it on YouTube or something.
Mm-hmm. It's actually on the website for Dementia Care
Yeah.
Warriors, which is Dementia
And
Care Warriors.
I saw that, and she was on there, and you spoke very well about
Thank
that.
you.
How did they select you for that?
So when I first moved back here and I wasn't working, because I came from like full-time, career,
Mhm.
I was bored at home and I'm like, I got to get out the house. I need to do something. So I started volunteering for the Alzheimer's Association.
Oh, okay.
And so I started off just kind of doing office work or whatever, but I had, higher level skills. So started doing more, meeting people there. I ended up getting on the board of the Alzheimer's Association. And then 1 year I represented caregivers at the Walk to End Alzheimer's. And so they came to our house and did kind of a story on my mom and my grandmother and I.
Okay.
And then I spoke at the walked-in Alzheimer's.
And also, before we close too, I want you to talk about, she had a segment on there about scamming. Mention that how people be trying to scam the older elderly people.
They do. They like, I don't know what the number is, but it is millions of dollars that they are taking from elderly people all the time. And
That's right.
And
That's
you think that
Mm-hmm.
who would fall for that, but you would be surprised. There's people who don't even have Alzheimer's who fall for
Yes,
these
they do.
scams.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
You know, and these people are relentless. Like,
Oh yeah.
I had a scammer call my house, no lie, 100 times in one day. I was just sitting there looking at the caller ID, like, and he just kept calling back and kept calling back. But there was a product that we came across called Telecom.
Yes.
And basically it is something that you attach to your phone, and basically it screens the calls. So you can block numbers.
Yes.
And you can have the calls come to an app on your phone. So if it's your mom's house, then you have, you know, the calls come, and it'll do every call that comes through. It can go to a voicemail box. But basically, it's to keep people from being able to scam seniors. You can make a list of safe numbers that will go directly to the phone. So if it's like, you know, their kids or, you know, some people, then it'll go to the phone. But otherwise, the calls will come through to your line, and then you can kind of screen out so that they don't get those. But also on the on my blog on the website, I have a couple articles about scammers.
Yes.
And I started recording the call
Yeah, that was fun.
because it was just so ridiculous that I'm like, y'all have got to be kidding me. So I would like put the phone on speakerphone and turn on the recorder on my phone and record these calls. I mean, I've been cursed out by these people. Like,
Really?
oh,
yes.
it is. But and just think about, if you're a senior, you don't realize it's a scam. You really are getting worked up and upset because you think that this person is like a real person, and they're not. Like, so.
You know, I don't have Alzheimer, but
Sometimes she try to act like
but
it.
I had to call sister. I said, you know, Social Security is calling me and they telling me that they're gonna give me this, and she said, that's a scam. Don't answer that phone anymore. You know, because if you answer the phone, they have a thing that they can trace your account and stuff, your bank account. So she told me, she said, don't answer that phone.
My mom's, one of her entire check for the month was rerouted to another account. And they changed her bank account, they changed her address and everything.
How did they get that information?
Talking to her on the phone.
Oh, she gave it to him.
Yeah. I don't know if it was just her social security number or what she gave them.
Okay.
But I mean, I had to file a police report. Yeah, I filed a police report. I spent hours at the Social Security office. I Googled the address that it went to, and it was a house in California that I could like see on my phone.
Yeah,
like
you
in
can
the satellite. Yeah.
Right.
And long story short, we never got the check back.
Wow.
Never figured out what happened.
And that's what you mentioned on there, how they call in and get that information, and they take, and that's the reason why so many people are being scammed, especially elderly people.
Right.
So if you're an elderly person listening to the show, don't do that. They'll call you for income tax. Don't do that, because IRS does not call you. When they call, they're gonna send you some information. I work part-time too for one of my H&R Block, and they'll tell you don't do that, because they'll ask for when they call me, they send me a letter, and they'll tell me the reference number. Then they'll say call back this number, so I have to call back that number, and they give you an agent number. You'll know it's IRS, because they're gonna ask you to pull up a page. You go to that page and they're going to ask you so they're going to give you all that information. IRS usually send out a letter and tell you. That's what they did with me. But you have to be careful. They've been calling me for I don't know what the deal is. Ever since my husband started getting his Social Security check, they've been calling me and talking about, ma'am, you know what? We got a Social Security. We calling you because you called us about a Social Security disability. I said, look, I work for the government. What did you click? They hang up. Everything. They always work with me.
Yeah.
When they come talk, I said, well, okay, can I have your agent number? Because I work for the government. And they click, they hang up.
They hang up.
But if you're an elderly person, like you said, how they did your mom, and here they are taking all these older people money. One of my husband's friend got scammed by the IRS. They called him up and said, "You owe us $6,000 some dollars, and if you don't pay it back, we're gonna garnish your house. We're gonna come take." And he was scared. He actually sent them the $6,000.
Oh, wow.
And by the time he realized it was it, they gone.
They gone.
And a lot of these companies are over there in other countries.
Nigeria is bad
Yeah,
about
and
it.
you hear that, and then you also have to be careful too. They'll send you this email saying, "Oh, this is your last relative." I done had a lot of them. And just because our name is Kirkwood, I done got all these little things saying, "Oh, and you're the next of kin, and we got $7 million. All we need you to do is send us your bank account, and we'll deposit this. We'll legit delete."
Right.
No.
Yep.
So you have to be
Right.
careful. I know our time is almost up. So Veronica, tell us some encouraging words, or tell us something that our audience might need to know about this disease that falls upon the dementia, Alzheimer's, and what would you share to them? And also give them your web page or your information about your nonprofit.
As far as a message for caregivers, I think one of the most important things, like we said earlier, is self-care. And, you know, taking care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you will not be able to take care of your loved one.
That's true.
And this, for those starting off on this journey, it is a difficult journey.
Yes.
You don't know how long it's going to be.
Oh, God.
I would recommend talking to, if you have siblings, talking to your family members and talking
Good
to your
point.
siblings to talk about how we're going to deal with this,
Right.
who's going to be responsible for what.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this all the time, just because you have that conversation doesn't mean they're going to do it, but at least have
least
the
you have it.
exactly, at least have the
That's
conversation.
That's true. They might not help.
Also to get financial and business affairs in order
Oh, good.
while your loved one is still
That's a good point.
able to sign whatever paperwork needs to be signed, able to tell you what bank accounts they have, insurance policies, you know, all those things, a will, because there will come a point where they won't be able to have those
Right.
conversations. So
Right.
you want to, you know, do that. And then also to talk to your doctors, you know, and make sure that you have a medical team that you're confident in and that you know, feel like you can talk to and that you trust and that will be with you on this journey. So those are just a couple tips that
That's
I usually
good.
have for
That's good.
caregivers starting off on this journey. And then my organization is Dementia Care Warriors, and the website is dementiacarewarriors.org. And so there's a lot of resources on there, lots of like products, books, websites, organizations. So I would highly recommend checking out the resource tab on there.
What about your happy hour? Is that on there?
Yeah, there's information about support groups on there too.
Okay.
And then also the Alzheimer Association is another good resource, and their website is aoz.org. And so if you're not in, you know, our area or wherever you are in the country, there's usually an Alzheimer Association chapter. You can find their events. They do a lot of education events as well. So that's another good resource.
Is this hereditary or is it just a?
So there is a certain type of Alzheimer's that is hereditary, and it's a certain gene that you can get tested for. And that's usually more so early onset. So people who get it in their 40s and 50s usually have that gene.
Early?
Oh yeah, 30s. There's people with Alzheimer's in their 30s.
Wow.
But for later onset, it's still just a lot of research that, you know, they don't know about it.
Yeah.
And it's not definite, because you could have one sibling who has it and another sibling who doesn't.
Right.
You know, so it's not
Now,
definite.
do you have a sibling? Or what?
I do have a sister,
Okay.
but she lives in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's really just
So
me.
have you ever mentally in your mind thought about you may get that, or
you know, I mean, it's clearly, yes, it's a possibility,
yeah,
but I don't think you could walk around thinking
just
that.
thinking about it.
Because
That's good. That's
we
good.
all
Yeah,
might
that's
get it.
good.
You
That's
know what I
good.
mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's
Right.
you can't
Yeah.
live.
Right.
But I mean, I do feel like I am well versed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
To recognize things.
Right.
And then also to try to lead a healthy lifestyle as far as diet and exercise and those things as well. So
That's good.
Exactly.
And that's good to know, because
it.
sometimes people think that just because you know your family have it or somebody that you automatically, that's how Satan too, he'll put it in your mind.
Yes.
Hey, your parent got, you know,
Right.
and so that's one of the things that some doctors, they will ask you, did your family have it?
Right.
Did somebody in your family have it? And then before you know it, they'll be telling you could get it and all this stuff. So, just stay close to God and talk to him, acknowledge him in all thine ways, and he'll direct your path. Because they keep telling me, you're borderline diabetic. I say, yeah, I'm going to stay right over here. I'm not crossing that line. So I'm keeping myself, exercising and everything. But anyway, we thank you, Veronica, for sharing, because it takes a lot out of you to share and talk about this and everything. And I dealt with my mom with her diabetes for about, I kept her for a while. And she almost drove me crazy. I ready to throw her down the stairs a couple of times. But anyway, you miss them and you hate to see them go through that. But, if I had to do it all over again, I would do it for my mother.
Amen.
And like I used to share with my sister, they would get jealous sometimes because mom didn't want to stay nobody with me. And I always asked her that. And she said, well, you the fun one. Okay? You the fun one. Plus, I was the one that would take her everywhere too. So, but anyway, I miss her now. And one of the things I would like to share with you, it's good that you're doing that. And you never prepare for anything to happen to your parents and stuff. And when my mom did pass on, it was like, what do I do now? I didn't know what to do with that time. Because I dedicated everything to her. That was my time, and it took a lot of time out raising the kids. But when she passed on, it was like, what do I do with this time? And everything, but I ended up, figuring it out, but it takes a while. It still takes a while. She's been gone almost 20-some years.
Oh, wow.
I still miss her, and I laugh sometimes and I cry sometimes. But the key to it is I really admire you for doing that.
Thank you.
Because you are a young woman giving up your life to take care of your grandmother and your mother. And a lot of people will not do that.
Right.
Some people will not. They'll throw them in a nursing home and leave them there. I used to work at a nursing home, and they never will come back and see their people. They just drop them in the nursing home, and they didn't come back and see them, And that's really something where people don't feel love when you do that.
Right.
So tonight, we just enjoyed your story, and I hope somebody was blessed by this to understand that this is the disease that we all need to be educated on and to get the information, because sometimes it might not even be there, like you said. It could be something else. So the key to it is get yourself checked. Go to your doctors. Do the women care thing, go and check out yourself. Men, you need to do the same too as well. Go and get your checkups. I hope y'all heard that in the back.
Because African Americans are twice as likely to have Alzheimer's than their white counterparts. So our community is definitely, that's
You're
exactly
right. We
true.
always get
Add this to the
You're
list.
right. Add that to the list. We like to have everything.
Yep.
Whether we do it or not, but you're right. But that is something. So,
What's your website?
DementiaCareWarriors.org.
Okay, so thank you all, Veronica, for being here. Thank you, Penny, for sitting in. She keep on sitting in. She might just join the show after a while. But anyway, thank you all again. Remember, watch us now. Our new night we added to is Thursday night. So now we're on twice a week, Monday and Thursday, 8 p.m., Facebook and YouTube. Check me out at www.elmatalkshow.com. If you would love to be on the show, we would love to have you. But it is a Christian-based talk show. We deal with real-life topics. We deal with real-life people. They are real. And we bring them in to tell their story. And please check out Penny. Story is going to come out. We're going to have her back. If you haven't seen her show, it's on YouTube right now. And you can go back and check out her. She was so nice to just sit in and be with us on this show. We thank you. You're welcome anytime. Check us out with Sister Chat. You're going to start seeing us with Sister Chat, where we talk about topics. So if you have a topic that you would love to come on and present to our audience, please check us out, inbox me or whatever, and let me know. Always check with Kimberly, check with Linda, and we make up the Talk of Life Talk Show with Elma every Monday and Thursday, 8 p.m., Facebook and YouTube. Please like our page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And a shout out to Emmanuel and Carlos, our executive producers. May God bless you until we see you face to face.